Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the NBA 2K roster review. I'm your host John Markish, aka the Real 2K Insider. The 2K roster review is going to cover what's going on around the NBA and how it correlates to your NBA 2K roster. The roster used in this video is my PS4 roster, the Real 2K roster. You can find it by searching Real 2K, my username Real 2K Insider, or just by finding it on the top downloads section. We are recapping the games from December 31st. There were 7 games. The Pacers blew out the Cavs 119-99. The Bulls beat the Wizards 133-130. The Sixers blew out the Magic 116-92 to end the Magic's undefeated season. The Rockets got their first win of the year against the Kings 122-119. The Raptors blew out the Knicks 100-83. The Pelicans decimated the Thunder 113-80. And the Suns beat the Jazz 106-95. So I actually had a technical mishap while attempting to record this episode originally. I forgot to hit the record button. So I'm going to do this again and try to fire through rapid fire because I already did this once and now I'm doing it twice. So we're going to start with the 76ers. Last episode, I extolled the virtues of the Clippers and how the team is playing better under Coach Tyronn Lue. So none of that means that Doc Rivers is a bad coach. His time with the Clippers organization had just run its course, and the fit with Philadelphia is much better. The team that the Sixers have is tailor-made for Doc Rivers. He's got his Kevin Garnett with Joel Embiid, who had 21 points, 9 rebounds on 7-11 shooting. He's got his scoring small forward in Paul Pierce with Tobias Harris. 20 points, 9 rebounds, 8 of 15 from the field, 3 of 4 on threes. He's got his Ray Allen shooter in Seth Curry, 21 points, 7 of 12 from the field, 5 of 7 on threes. He's got Rajon Rondo, the point guard that can't shoot, with Ben Simmons, 9 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. He also had his first 3 of the year, but that's obviously not what he's known for. He's got defensive role players like James Posey, a.k.a. Danny Green, as well as Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey off the bench. He's got his rebounding center with Dwight Howard, who's a Kendrick Perkins impersonator at this stage of his career. And he's even got the bench scoring guard that he loves with Shake Milton. So right now, the 76ers are the number 1 defense in the league through 5 games. They're tied for the best record in the Eastern Conference. GM Daryl Morey, he did a masterful job as well, restructuring and optimizing this team faster than anyone could have imagined. A couple months ago, this team was the laughingstock of the Eastern Conference, and now they are on top of it. So great job all around by the organization to get things going. And we're going to work on some ratings for them. Joel Embiid, he's averaging 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists. His shooting percentage is 52%, up from 48% last year. Doc has cleaned up some of Embiid's offensive inefficiencies. He's got him spending more time around the basket, and his turnovers are also down as a result. So we're going to boost a couple of his ratings, just his offensive consistency and his defensive consistency. That boosts its overall rating by a point, and we're going to adjust Seth Curry as well, who's also tailor-made for Doc's system and having a career year. Beyond the shooting numbers, his assists are also up. So we're going to boost his free throw rating because that's up. Shot IQ, a couple points. If I can ever find it. I never know where it is. There we go. His passing ratings, since those are up. And we're going to adjust his defensive consistency, since again, as was stated, the Sixers are the number 1 defense, and we'll adjust other defensive ratings probably for Curry once more data becomes available, like his on-ball defense rating, etc. So going over to the Bulls, they got their second win of the year against the Wizards, who again was their only wins of the year against Washington. Otto Porter, he started for Lauri Markkanen, and he led the team with 28 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, shot 10 of 14 from the field, 5 of 9 on threes. This was his second game against the Wiz that really constitutes a revenge game. So his rating might go up if he continues playing at this level. He's the last 2 years with Chicago, he really didn't get to play much due to injuries, so hopefully he's able to stay healthy and build on it because he didn't earn that $29 million a year contract by accident. He is a good player. Zach LaVine, he had 22 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, while Kobe White, he had 16 points and 10 assists. 10 assists are a career high. As previously mentioned, he's a point guard this year, so his assists are going to be up, but he's only shooting 36% this year, so we really haven't been able to touch his shooting ratings at all. Statistically, he's actually performing worse this year than he is last year, despite his assists being up, because his shooting has been worse. So he's so close to going up in rating, but can't do it until he starts shooting the ball better. Thaddeus Young, he made his debut, scoring 15 points. He had 6 assists, shot 7 of 12 from the field. Patrick Williams was the starting power forward in this game, and Thad played over him in the closing lineup. And the Bulls were also without Satoransky and Arcadia Koto for COVID reasons. It later we found out that Chandler Hutchison, he tested positive for COVID, so he might have to miss extended time. I don't really know what the timeline is for guys once they get it, but he'll probably be out at least 2 weeks, and then depending on his recovery, hopefully he doesn't have a strong case of it. Mo Bamba is still recovering from his COVID, and he had it back in July, so here's hoping that Hutchison has a mild case. But because they were without the 2 point guards, Zach LaVine ended up getting some run at point guard in this game, so I changed his second position. And it makes sense to change his position anyway because the Bulls have a lot more help at the 3 this year. Porter's healthy, Valentine's healthy, and they drafted Patrick Williams, so they shouldn't need too much of LaVine at the 3 this year. Plus, Garrett Temple's been getting any extra minutes at the 3 as well, so makes sense to change his position, I think. Moving over to Cleveland, they lost their second consecutive game, but the guards, they continued to play well. Colin Sexton, he had 28 points, 4 assists, shot 12 and 19 from the field, 2 of 2 from the three-point line. For his season average, 5 games, he's averaging 26 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 56% from the field, and he's 9 of 15 on threes. So we're going to boost his 3-point rating a point. We're going to max out his shot IQ. And we're going to boost his offensive consistency. And that's going to raise his rating a point. And Darius Garland, who we already updated once this year, we're going to update him again because he had 21 points. He shot 8 of 14 from the field, 5 of 7 on threes. Through his first 5 games, he's averaging 19 points and 7 assists. So it looks like he is a contender for most improved player this year. We're going to boost his layup rating, his mid-range a couple points, 3-point a point, shot IQ, and then since his passing is up, we're going to boost that a little bit. Offensive consistency, where'd it go? And his steal rate is also up, so let's tweak that a little bit, and that pumps him up to a 79 overall. That ranks him 25th among starting point guards now. Last year he was 30th. And it's worth noting that 2K Sports has him at a 74 rating, so look for them to most likely bump his rating whenever they release their roster update. I'm sure they're due for one, as it's been about 2 weeks since the season started. And Dante Exum, quick note on him, is he started at the 3 in this game, and he had 7 points, 4 rebounds, and 0 assists in 28 minutes. He did hit 2 threes, which has been a weakness for him in his career. It was the team's 3rd straight game without Isaac Okoro, and they opted to keep Jetty Osman in his 6-man role. So changing Exum makes some sense because he also played time there. Not changing him to the small forward, but changing his second position rather to small forward makes sense. And it's worth noting that Osman came in for Darius Garland, which then shifted Exum to his natural point guard. So still pretty comfortable with that as his primary position. going over to Utah, who's Exum's former team. Not really a ton of notes. They lost to the Suns. Donovan Mitchell, 23 points on 23 shots. Not his greatest game. Rudy Gobert, he had 18 and 14 on 7 of 9 shooting. The reason they really lost this game was Bojan Bogdanovic had 3 points on 0 of 5 shooting in 29 minutes. Utah's been a little meh this year, but hopefully this loss gives them a little kick in the rear to get going. The Kings, they lost their second game this year against the Rockets. Richaun Holmes, he had a good game, 22 points, 13 rebounds. He was 10 for 13 from the field. He played 36 minutes because Hassan Whiteside is going to be no good against a small ball team like the Rockets, so he only played 3 minutes, leading to Holmes getting some extra run. Harrison Barnes also had a good game. Most likely just a good matchup for him as he gets to play the 4 against the smaller teams. He had 24 points, 8 rebounds, but the guards were not their most efficient games. Fox had 22 points on 23 shots. Hield had 19 points on 18 shots. Bagley didn't have a great game, 4 points, 8 rebounds, 1 for 9 from the field in 26 minutes. But worth noting, Tyrese Halliburton, he played over Bagley down the stretch, and he was solid once again with 11 points off the bench. But the Kings overall have been performing much better than they have in the past couple of years. So look for some of their ratings to trickle upwards. The Knicks, they had not a great game. They shot 3 for 36 on threes against the Raptors, which was their worst three-point shooting night in franchise history. Austin Rivers, he made his debut and was the backup point guard. The Knicks just really haven't been able to get any type of consistency from their point guards. They've all been in and out of the lineup with nagging injuries. So add Austin Rivers on to the point guard carousel. RJ Barrett, he had a disastrous 12 points on 4 of 19 shooting, including 0 for 8 on threes. He's been absolutely putrid since the opener. He shot 11 of 15 with 3 of 3 on threes in the opener. But in the 4 games since, he is 17 of 66 from the field, including 0 for 21 on threes. So, Barrett, he didn't make All-Rookie last year, despite playing a lot of minutes, and that was because he didn't shoot the ball well at all. 14 points on 14 shots is not a good rate. Played 30 minutes a game and didn't make a rookie team, which is very rare. Very, very rare. He's got to play better because he's playing worse than he did as a rookie, discounting the opener. The Knicks are, Thibs is a win-now coach, so now that the guards are getting a little healthy, Alec Burks is technically out with some nagging injuries, but now that Austin Rivers is back too, don't be surprised if Thibs starts playing the vets over the young guys if the young guys aren't going to perform. So going over to the Magic, they lost their first game of the year. They're a little banged up right now. They were without Terrence Ross for this game, and it definitely showed as they shot 35% from the field. They were only 7 of 28 on threes. Vucevic was the lone bright spot with 19 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Aaron Gordon was 1 for 8 from the field. Cole Anthony, he had 16 points, 7 rebounds, but only shot 5 of 18. He played 30 minutes because he moved up to the 2, while Michael Carter-Williams, he filled in for Ross at the 3. And we mentioned the Magic are banged up. Chuma Okeke left the game due to a bone bruise in his knee. He's out for multiple weeks. It's the same knee that he tore his ACL, but fortunately no ligament damage anywhere, and the team isn't considering the injuries related. So injuries are starting to pile up for this team, and that's a little bit of a trend for the NBA in this kind of condensed season. It's more or less like all hands on deck for teams because COVID protocols, they're usually missing 2 to 3 players a game because of that, and the short training camp I think is leading to a couple more nagging injuries for players, but for the Magic, Mo Bamba's still out due to COVID complications. Okeke's going to be out for a couple weeks, maybe even a month. Al-Farouq Amino doesn't have a timetable. Jonathan Isaac tore his ACL in the bubble. James Ennis right now is week to week. So Magic they have a 4-1 record, but they're hanging in there by a thread. Wouldn't be surprised to see them rack up a couple more losses in the interim. The Pacers, they are 4-1. Domantas Sabonis, you guys know how I feel about him. He had 25 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. He was 10 for 14 from the field, 2 for 2 on threes, 3 for 3 from the line, 1 turnover in 37 minutes. He's stupid efficient, and that's, if you guys know anything about me, it's that I love efficiency. He's easily one of the most underrated players in the NBA, as evidenced by his paltry 85 rating in the 2K Sports roster. TJ Warren, he's out indefinitely with a stress fracture in his foot. Jeremy Lamb is still a month away from returning, and he'll be able to fill his scoring load once that happens. But in the interim, Aaron Holiday is going to start in his place and might change Victor Oladipo's position, but holding off on it for now. Going over to the Pelicans. Not a ton of notes for them. They beat the Thunder by 33. Zion was in foul trouble, but it didn't matter as Josh Hart, he came in and he had 12 points, 11 rebounds in 34 minutes. The best 6'5 rebounder in the NBA. Brandon Ingram, he had 20. Lonzo Ball, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. Pretty good game for him, and was matched up against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Steven Adams, he had 14 points and 10 rebounds in his first game against his former team. Just a solid performance overall by them. The Raptors got their first win of the year. Pascal Siakam was benched for disciplinary reasons as he walked back to the locker room after fouling out versus the 76ers. And it's good for the team to send a message. It doesn't matter how many millions of dollars NBA players make at the end of the day. It's a job is a job is a job. He's the leader of this team, and it's just important to send the message that we win together as a team and we lose together as a team. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you get to pout and sulk off. You still got to fill, your role with this team. But he'll be fine, and he probably could use the day off to get his head right, as he has been struggling from the field. But the Raptors didn't need him anyway to beat the garbage-ass Knicks. So Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, they combined for 45 points. Norman Powell, he started for Siakam, pushing OG to the 4. Terrence Davis got some run, filling Powell's six-man role off the bench. He hasn't really played much this year, so maybe this will get him going. The Raptors are a deep team. Going over to the Rockets. They got their first win of the year, and John Wall, he had 22 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, shot 8 of 20 from the field, was 2 of 8 on threes, but, his first game back from a torn Achilles, the Rockets will take it. Torn Achilles used to be a death sentence for NBA careers, but clearly that's a bit overblown nowadays, with Kevin Durant, looking like he hasn't lost a step at all, and ditto for John Wall. James Harden, he had 33 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 10 of 24 from the field, 4 of 11 on threes, 9 of 11 from the free throw line. Pretty standard game for him overall. And definitely looks like these two guys can play together. Christian Wood, 21 points, 13 rebounds, 9 of 14 from the field. Third consecutive solid game. I don't like his 81 overall rating, but it's just kind of the nature of the 2K rating system, as their ratings, the overall formula just kind of sucks for some of these positions. If we shift his position to power forward, his rating jumps by 3 points. But the problem is, if you do that, then DeMarcus Cousins is going to play next to him, and that's not happening in real life. Cousins is Wood's backup, which is why it's important to have his position at center, as otherwise the AI is going to do silly things with their rotations. Eric Gordon also made his debut, as he'd been out. Him and Wall and a couple other guys have been out for quarantine purposes. And he had a solid debut, 17 points on 6 of 12 shooting. Last year they tried him in a six-man role, and he just couldn't get going, and he didn't seem very receptive to a six-man role, but he's more open to it this year. and he looked a lot better. The team needs him to fill that role so long as James Harden is a Rocket. Because it doesn't really make sense to have him as a small forward. Plus Daniel House is a solid contributor on this team, and David Nwaba, because everybody came back, he was out of the rotation. And Jayshawn Tate, he is ahead of Caboclo in the rotation, so gotta lower the overall ratings for some of these other guys to get them out of the rotation. As if we look over here, when I automate the rotation, he's actually out because he has the same rating as these two guys, so gotta drop them down just a smidge. Going over the Suns, they are 4-1. Devin Booker, 25 points, 7 assists, 10 of 17 from the field, although he did have 6 turnovers. He's been racking up the turnovers, which you wouldn't think would be the case with them adding CP3, but I think the main distinction is the Chris Paul that we've gotten so far hasn't been the point god. It's been the Chris Paul that deferred to James Harden when he was with the Houston Rockets. So Chris Paul, he had another quiet night with 11 points, 8 rebounds. He shot 4-13 from the field. And I'm starting to think that we can expect these regularly now. He's failed to break double figures in 3 other games, and he only had 11 points in this one. So he's making $40 million right now to be Ricky Rubio. Age may have finally caught up to him. He's only shooting 38% this year, which is down from 49% last year. So definitely not himself right now. I don't know if it's fitting in with the new team, or he didn't get enough of a layoff, or whatever the reason is. I don't think that it makes sense to have him running around with a 93 overall rating while he's having what's easily the worst season of his career thus far. So even though the Suns are playing well with a 4-1 record, it just doesn't make sense for CP3 to be their highest rated player. So we're going to tank him. And you guys know this hurts my soul because Chris Paul is one of my favorite players. We're going to drop his layup rating because he's not really getting to the rim. Close shot and mid-range to reflect his lower shooting percentages. We'll drop the 3 as well. Dropping the foul rate because, again, he's not getting to the rim. Not drawing fouls. Consistency down, as obviously he's not very consistent right now. Steals and all that that drops him 2 points. It's probably going to be a little extreme for most of my live rating edits, as I'm usually I err on the side of caution when it comes to making adjustments. We're just taking things game by game here. But it's very clear that Paul isn't in the same class as like Trae Young, for example. I just bumped up to a 93, and he's playing at an MVP level, and Chris Paul is definitely not. And guys like Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, it's okay. Paul's probably not going to make the All-Star team this year, so it's okay to drop him, I think. The biggest difference he might be making for the team is on the defensive end, as the Suns rank 3rd in the NBA in defensive efficiency compared to 17th last year. So he's always going to be a good defensive player due to his high IQ. OKC Thunder, they fell to 1-3. Al Horford had a solid game, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, was 7 of 9 from the field, 3 of 5 on threes. Pretty standard for him. He's just waiting for a trade, just playing out the string kind of. But that's a standard game, and contenders would be happy if he did that for him. He's just being showcased. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, though, he's the future of the OKC Thunder team, but he didn't have a good game against Lonzo Ball. He had 8 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, shot only 3 of 10 from the field. And he was backed up by Poku in this game. Isaiah Roby played his natural power forwards. We switched Roby back to the 4 from center. Poku shot 1 for 4 to raise his season shooting percentage from 6% to 10%. So, he's rapidly improving, but he did commit 6 turnovers. So, you win some, you lose some. Finally, we're finishing off with the Washington Wizards. They fell to 0-5 despite Russell Westbrook having his 4th triple-double in 4 games with 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists. Roy Hashimura, he returned from injury, and he had a solid game. He started for Isaac Bonga, who was completely out of the rotation, and that also pushed Denny Advia back to his natural small forward. But Hashimura, he had 17 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 of 8 from the field, 2 of 2 on threes. Solid debut overall. And in the presence of Hashimura and Bertans getting in better game shape has allowed the Wizards to not go to the triple point guard lineup, the funky one that I hated. So as a result, I took away Westbrook's second position. I had a second position at power forward due to that lineup. Hopefully they don't go back to it because it just wasn't. I didn't think it was very successful at all. Bradley Beal, he had 28 points, shot 8 of 19 from the field, 0 of 3 on threes, 12 of 13 from the line. He's now just 21% from three-point range this year. Not great. I mean, he did score 28 points on 19 shots, but we'll get to that. We'll get to Beal, I guess, in a second. Thomas Bryant, he had 28 points on 10 of 11 shooting, 3 of 3 on threes. And Raul Neto, he had 15 points on 5 of 7 shooting, 3 of 3 on threes off the bench. He's having the best statistical season of his career, being used as like a scorer rather than a facilitator. His overall rating will probably go up a bit as long as he's playing well. And all these gaudy stat lines for the Wizards, but they're 0-5. And it's because they aren't defending any better this year than they were last year when they were 30th in the league. They're giving up 115 points per 100 possessions. That's like how to put that into historical context for how bad they are. The Mavericks were the most efficient offense in NBA history last year at 116 points per 100 possessions. The Wizards are the opposite of that. That's how bad they are defensively. And, they added Russell Westbrook in theory for his two-way ability as well as to lighten the load on Bradley Beal so that Bradley Beal would be able to give more effort on the defensive end. And none of that is happening right now. And, they benched Isaac Bonga for this game, but he's the only guy that's willing to work on the defensive end. And so it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, Advi is an offensive player, Hashimura is an offensive player, Bertans would probably like to be a defensive player, but he's not. He's just limited on that end. Thomas Bryant's an offensive player. They loaded up on all these offensive players, and they need somebody that's going to sacrifice and do all the dirty work. Maybe they need to play Robin Lopez more. Maybe Troy Brown needs to become that player, or I don't know. But right now, it's they have talent. They have a lot of talent, but they're 0-5. So they don't have the right recipe as of yet. But anyway, that wraps it up for this edition of the 2K roster review. Is there a player that you think should be going up or down in rating after the first week of the season? Leave a comment and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode of 2K roster content. Until next time, stay safe and have a happy new year.